Don't be a retard. We're going to talk about that.
Why is it hard for people to let go of what's so familiar to them, even if it's bad?
Well, because it's complicated. You know, and the thing, that's a really good question. You discount the risk of familiarity that they're familiar with. So like, let's say...
Because people are in relationships with the drugs and alcohol. People are in relationships with humans. People are in relationships with jobs. People are in relationships with their own selves. And they're living a lie every single day, but it's familiarity.
Yeah, well, you say, I have a job I hate. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm not dying from it. It's like not as bad as it can be. So you factored in the risks already. They get invisible. You think, well, I can't jump out of this job because what about all the risk? It's like, yeah, no kidding. You got to get your resume in order. You got to send it out. You got to send 50 of the damn things out before anybody will call you back. Then you have to go get interviewed, and maybe you're not any good at that. You have to come up with a story while you're a good employee, and maybe you're not yet, so you have to figure out how to do that. It's like, what about all these risks if I go look for a new job? It's like, yeah, absolutely, man. Those are risks, and they're harsh, and no wonder you're avoiding them.
Don't be a retard is what a billionaire told me, and it's exactly what I needed to hear. In my early 20s, I was in a very dark place, living in my parents' house, and I was going through a really tough time. As a kid, I always imagined myself being extremely successful, believing that I could be, do, and have anything and everything I set my mind to. That's what we're told when we're kids, but when we grow up, they tell you to get a real job, to be realistic. It's considered to be adorable when you're a kid, to have dreams, and everyone encourages you. But as soon as you turn 17, 18, it's like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? You need to know the answers right away. You need to know what degree, what college you're going to, what career, what are you going to do for the rest of your life. And I remember thinking to myself, every adult I see is working all the time. What about those people in the movies or social media that are actually living life, not just working just to pay bills? I mean, this idea of working 5, 6, 7 days a week, all day, every day, just to pay bills, is not something that ever resonated with me. It was not something that even crossed my mind, because in my mind, I was going to be different. In my mind, I was going to live my life on my terms. I realized this at a very young age, at 7 years old maybe, because I saw my parents working all the time. And since I was a kid, they told me, we came to this country to give you a better life, a better education, so you better go to school and you better get a degree, because that certificate, that little piece of paper, they used to tell me, that piece of paper is everything, and I'm gonna be so proud of you when you get that piece of paper. Without that piece of paper, you're nothing. You're going to be flipping burgers for the rest of your life. And I thought to myself, yeah, I don't want to be flipping burgers, but at the same time, those people who do go to school, they're working all the time and they don't have money and they don't have time. There's not a career in school that is the path to freedom, the path to traveling the world and living like a rock star. And it seemed to me like that lifestyle was only for people in movies or on social media, but not for those who go to school. And I made this realization at a very young age, so I was determined to not go to school, even though that's what my parents really wanted for me. I was determined to figure it out. So I thought to myself, I'm gonna do some sort of business. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm not gonna be stuck. The idea of working your whole life to then travel and have freedom when you're in your 60s, when you retire. I grew up in a building complex where a lot of people were old and retired. And I remember seeing this emptiness, sad, empty regret in their eyes. And it seemed to me like they were very unhappy, like they followed the path of going to school, working their whole lives, and they finally retired and they didn't live life. And they're not living life in retirement. I mean, are you supposed to party? Are you supposed to travel? Are you supposed to have adventures and excitement when you're retired? When you're old and crippled?
What about the risks for you to stay with this job you absolutely hate? Well, let's think that through. Okay, so I have this dead-end job. I hate it. I'm getting bitter. Where am I going to be in 5 years? I know where, because I've watched this with people. You're going to be just like you are now, except a lot more of what's good about you is going to be gone, and a lot more of what's terrible is going to be amplified. And you're going to be like, in 5 years, you're going to be 10 years older instead of 3 years older.
Yeah.
Right. And
Because it kills your spirit somehow.
Oh, man. Yeah. So it's like, you think, oh my God, there's a terrible risk in pursuing this new job. It's like, yeah, there is a terrible risk. There's a terrible risk in you staying with your job right now. And so one of the things that's really, really freeing to understand is that you're screwed no matter what you do. There's no secure path forward. Give it up. It's risk everywhere. You think, oh my God, that's terrible. It's like, yes, except for two things. You can pick your risk. That's the first thing. So you get to pick your poison. That's something. And second, you're a lot tougher than you think. So even though there's risk everywhere, if you confront it forthrightly, what you'll find is that you can actually handle the risk. And that's the security.
That's beautiful.
What are you supposed to do if you don't have genetics like LeBron James or a God-given talent like Justin Bieber? I mean, not everyone can sing. Trust me, not everybody can sing. What if you don't have the connections to be an actor or whatever it is? Like, what if you don't have that to be a famous, ultra-rich, wealthy celebrity? Are you supposed to accept that traditional path of just going to school, getting a 9-to-5 career and being stuck and just paying taxes, paying student loans, paying bills, and working until retirement? Is that what you're supposed to do? Fuck that. In my mind, no offense to anybody, but in my mind, that was not an option. I thought to myself, wait a minute, there's people who are doing business. So that's what I'm gonna do. What business? I don't know, but I'm gonna figure out how to do business, how to make money. I'm gonna figure it out because I'm not going to work my whole life to then retire in my 60s, to then travel in my 60s, to then what, party in my 60s? Fuck that. And I started selling candy in school, realizing that school is a waste of time. I used to ask my teachers, hey, how is Pythagorean theorem going to help me in life? I was that kid asking questions. How the fuck is trigonometry going to help me make money? How come we're not talking about making money? How come we're not talking about freedom? How come we're not talking about anything that can be used in real life? Pythagorean theorem, trigonometry, Shakespeare, how the fuck is that gonna help me in my life? Can you show me something? Investments, money. I need freedom in my life. I don't want to be working my whole fucking life stuck in a 9-to-5 job. So show me something that matters. And none of my teachers could ever answer that question. How the fuck is that going to help me in my life? And the truth is, it wasn't. It never did. Nothing they ever taught in school helped me in my life. Ever. And I realized that school was a waste of time, so I didn't want to let it be. And what I did was I sold candy in school. And I started making about $100 in profit selling candy, which was a lot of money to me back then. Eventually, I saved up enough money to buy a car. And by 17 years old, I saved up $10,000. And I was thinking to myself, well, I'm going to take this $10,000 and I'm going to invest it into something. And in my early 20s, I'm going to be a millionaire. Started hanging out with the wrong people, wrong girlfriend, wrong everything, no plan, and I ended up in my early 20s living in my parents' house, not knowing how the fuck I was going to escape that shithole I was in. To me, always envisioning myself being successful and then getting slapped in the face by reality and being in my early 20s completely broke, stuck in my parents' house, living in Miami, seeing so much abundance around me, so many beautiful women, beautiful cars, beautiful everything, and just not being able to live life, just stuck in a room. I felt like I was trapped in a prison cell. It may not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but to me, I was in hell. I was trapped, and nothing could feel worse than just being trapped and lost, and I was depressed. It's difficult for a grown man to cry. Females, they cry if they see a beautiful sunset. They cry if the sunset is not beautiful enough. I don't know. But for a man to cry is kind of difficult. But I cried every fucking day in my early 20s. So going back to what this billionaire told me, don't be a retard, is actually his favorite word because he uses it all the time. But retard, I looked it up, it actually means to delay progress. Now, by definition, a lot of people are retarded because they're delaying progress. If you're in school and you know you don't want to be there, you know it's not for you, deep inside you already know it, get the fuck out. You got to get out because you have to start figuring out what it is that you're going to do with your life. If you're in a job that you hate, then you got to get the fuck out because you're not happy in that job and you're not going anywhere. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, barely able to afford your bills, you're going to have to find a way out of the rat race, and you're going to have to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to start trying new things, applying for different jobs, aim higher, try something different. Because if you don't do that, you're delaying progress, and that's gonna hurt you. Now, a lot of people, they feel very nice and comfortable in their low-paying jobs. They're barely able to afford their bills. And when I say very nice and comfortable, what I mean by that is they're extremely uncomfortable, but it's familiar to them. So people take comfort in the fact that something is familiar. People are stuck in toxic relationships because it's familiar. People are stuck in jobs they hate because it's familiar. People are in school because they've been conditioned to be in school for 20 years and get into student debt, all because it's familiar. Here's something tangible. You have two options. You could either figure it out on your own, ask people, hey, I want something that can make me over $10,000 a month. Ask around and you'll find it. If you ask around, you'll find it. Trust me. I wish somebody had told me this. If you ask around, you'll find it. So that's option one. Ask around, ask your friends. Option two, I left a free link in the description below. It's free. Do not delay progress. Go there. I'll answer your questions on a Zoom call. It's free. What's your fucking excuse? Do not delay progress. Click on the link below and I'll see you soon.
I think the biggest risk would have been to play it safe and continue to work the same job for the rest of my life. Sometimes I think about all the things that would have never happened if I hadn't taken this opportunity. Some people see us traveling and say that we just got lucky. They don't see the work behind the scenes, but I don't mind. What does frustrate me is when people are doing things they don't want to do for the rest of their lives because they weren't taught in school how to escape the rat race, and that's by design.